Students, what is the most insane stunt you've witnessed a teacher try to pull? My English teacher tried to fail half the class after losing our papers. So I helped her retire early. I had an English teacher named Mrs. Smith. She liked to refer to herself as Dr. Smith, despite not having a doctorate, and was a mean old bat that hated anything and everything. She was ugly inside and out. To give a mental image of what she looks like, her face sagged so much it looked like she had a perpetual stroke. She had about 2 feet in between her eyebrows and her eyes. Imagine Ursula and Cruella de Vil had a child, and then that child had a baby with the devil. You get Mrs. Smith. None of the other English teachers liked her. There was nothing that they nor the administration could do due to her tenure. That is, until I became her student. Her teaching style included, but was not limited to, yelling at students, putting them down with petty insults, having us read to ourselves in the middle of class, and kicking out students that were dozing off, then later falling asleep herself at her desk. She wouldn't let female students go to the restroom for very obvious reasons, and would lose students' work, then accuse the students of not turning their work in. This last part is what crossed the line for me. You see, I wasn't a grade A student and I sucked at English, so I always played my cards right and made friends with everyone. Students and teachers included. So when I struggled and couldn't do something on my own, I let my charm save me and cashed out on my months of being nice to everyone. However, no one could be friends with Mrs. Smith. I tried being polite. I was met with rudeness. I tried asking her how her morning was. I was met with silence and dead stares. I tried asking how I could improve my writing skills, but she told me that she wasn't willing to help. Within the first week of class, I knew I had met my match. So halfway through the semester, we're working on a big research paper. However, the day after the due date, Mrs. Smith had to go up to Illinois for some family issues for 2 weeks. Mind you, we turned in our papers both in hand and on Turnitin.com for plagiarism checking. No biggie. We won't get our grades back for a while, but at least we won't have to deal with her BS. Or so we thought. A few days after she got back, only about half of the students got their papers back. The other half, including myself, were sitting there staring and waiting, thinking that she was going to go back to her desk and pull out the remaining papers to return to her students. But nope, she told us to take out our textbooks and start reading Beowulf. Some students, including myself, that didn't receive their papers tried to interject and inquire about our papers. She snapped back with, "You should have turned them in when they were due." In unison, we respond with, "We did." Competition was fierce, he said, and being such a tiny store, he struggled to bring in customers. Add to that he and his teenage son did all the deliveries, made especially difficult by the fact that his back was starting to go, and he was just done. "I'm going back to long-distance trucking," he confided. "I've already got a job lined up, with benefits and better pay, and I can give my back a rest." I handed him the paperwork, and he told me to come back after work and I could load up my bed after he'd processed my info. Promptly at 5 o'clock that evening, I was back, card in hand and ready to load up. The salesman met me outside, apologetic. He'd not had time to run my paperwork, he said, but that was all right. I could still take the mattress that day, and he'd call me when he'd set up my payments. I couldn't complain too much about that, so his son helped me load the tightly rolled mattress into my car, and off I went. By the following week, I'd still heard nothing back. The mattress had taken a couple of days to air out, and it still smelled weird from newness, but overall I loved it. Like the Lannisters, however, my parents taught me to always pay my debts, and I'd worked hard to earn this mattress. I had no interest in acquiring it in any dishonest way. I returned to the store by the second week to check on things. The salesman apologized profusely as he searched through even larger piles of paperwork on his desk. Things were crazy what with the closing, he explained, but he'd get my papers done eventually, he promised. 2 weeks after that, as I was once again driving to work, I noticed that the mattress sign was gone. His delivery truck was no longer parked there, either, and the windows were empty and dark. I checked that night to confirm, and sure enough, he was gone. I had no way to contact him, either, since the only number available had been for the business. For years thereafter I waited to hear from him. I halfway thought that collections might show up at my door or in my mailbox, or however, they shake money out of supposed mattress thieves. I like to think he just scraped all those papers into a box in the end and took great satisfaction in tossing that box on his celebratory bonfire that evening. I'll likely never know for sure, but 4 years later, I'm curled up on that same mattress, comfortably typing out this story. Somewhere I hope there's a happy long-distance truck driver who found a good job and a good life, so good, in fact, that the $1,000 he missed out on never even crosses his mind.